part of the Earglue Media family of podcasts.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Just fire me now.
Hello, everybody.
I can't. I'm like almost 10 years into this, and I don't know how to run a board. But go ahead.
All right.
Intro the show.
Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 332, the Skywalker Saga, The Force Awakens. This is now part 6. Are we on part 6 of this? Yeah.
No, this is
My math.
7.
That's up. 7?
7.
7. Yeah, this is 7.
This is episode 7.
7.
Man.
My goodness.
I know. I can't run a board. You can't count.
I can't
it all
count.
Works.
That's
is
been
what
a known thing
creates-
for years.
Yeah, mine too. This is what makes the magic, though.
Right.
Of the show. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're here. We're
Yeah.
back. We are going to break down The Force Awakens tonight. And joining me is none other than our perfectionist of a
Yeah.
podcaster.
I so used to be. I used to be.
So if you missed the beginning of the show, he accidentally played the outro, I think.
Yeah, I did. I was busy trying to go live. See, the problem is this stupid boom arm is in my way.
Yeah, it covers it up.
Yeah, and I hit the button.
Yeah.
Anyway, no excuses.
First world problems.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. This is we're kind of taking all of the movies, all 9 of the movies, and now that the Skywalker saga is over, we're doing a retrospective look at all of the movies and kind of seeing like, hey, so how did this play out, and what did this kind of tie to that sort of thing. So, and probably more than anything, now that we're getting into the sequel trilogy, I think this is where this is probably hopefully going to pay off a lot more than it has, given that there were a lot of things that were thrown into this movie and the next 2 movies that were either tributes to the original movies or maybe had loose connections in one way or the other. And now that we are wiser and have seen them all holistically, I think we can hopefully draw some parallels and kind of connect the dots. But
maybe.
don't hold your breath there. So before we get started into the actual show, we're gonna do we'll talk about the stats in terms of how it did at the box office. We'll look at the on-screen or off-screen type moments that we remember, and then we'll get into the on-screen stuff and dig into that. At the very end of the show, we'll both break down our own kind of personal moment. Maybe not necessarily our favorite moment, but just something we felt that was worthy or noteworthy of talking about and breaking down, dissecting. So without further ado, let's talk numbers. So this movie, $306 million was the budget, and then it's interesting because they got a net budget in there also, which I think was because they had some kickbacks from different, and I don't even know, there's probably tons of things, right? There were some offsetting costs for doing this movie either at different locations or who knows what it was, but somehow that brought the budget down in some way. But at the end of the day, yeah, tax-free stuff, that certainly happened. But $2 billion is what this brought in. Do you have the top 10 or the top whatever movies adjusted for inflation?
I do. Well, not for the inflation.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, highest grossing adjusted for inflation. And it breaks in right at number 10, even though it did $2 billion.
I thought this was higher, though. I don't know why I thought it was higher. I know we've been discussing it for the last, 6 weeks, and you brought this list up all the time, like you mentioned it. I don't know. I just thought it was like number 8 for some reason. No,
and I think it's...
I even thought Endgame was like way higher than that, but...
You might be thinking about the non-adjusted
probably
amount, right? Total box office gross. I mean, it was for the longest time number 1, and then I think it was Endgame came in and took that over, and then we have the infamous passing of the baton, right? You remember that picture they showed where it was the lightsaber being handed over to, I think it was Iron Man's hand or something, and then when was it Rise, or what came out after that? Was it Rise of Skywalker or Force Last Jedi? Something beat that, and then they passed the baton on again.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Disney problems must be tough. Yeah.
But it made a lot of money. How about that, right? It
Yeah.
made a ton of money. And so if there was ever any doubt as to whether or not Star Wars was alive, dead, or indifferent, this movie proved otherwise. It was a phenomenon. Again, very similar to, in many aspects, the way we spoke about A New Hope in the very first, or I guess episode number 4. And then how we spoke about the Phantom Menace and the release of that back in '99. So, so let's get into, I guess, some of our off-screen moments, and we'll kind of just pick up right there. I mean, this was a long wait for us. Not as long as the prequel trilogy, but I mean to the tune of almost 14 years here that this finally came out.
This was the wait. Like, this was from Return of the Jedi to now kind of thing. That, like, this is the one we original fans have wanted, right? The prequels were great. We wanted that, but we still wanted to see Han, Luke, and Leia, right? And Lando and Chewie and the gang. We wanted to see them yet again, and we had to wait a while, and here we go. We got it.
Yeah, and we got it. And let's get into, I mean, we'll probably kind of talk about this throughout all three of these trilogies, or all three of the movies here in the last trilogy, and that's really just kind of the maybe disconnectedness that I think we felt, and we've talked about probably ad nauseum on this show, but the disconnectedness that we felt. And I kind of want to start where this really kind of began, if you will. And this goes back to, and if you've had a chance to read Bob Iger's book, we talked about it on this show before, but if you roll back all the way to 2015 or something like that, or 2014, whenever it was he made the announcement and they kind of picked up speed in terms of production. Originally this movie was, George Lucas was still part of Lucasfilm. Disney hadn't purchased it yet. The movie was announced. He had already brought on Michael, or what's his name?
Arndt.
Yeah, Arndt.
Yep.
To write the original
writing the script. Yeah.
And that script, he's the writer of Toy Story 3. He had done.
We speculated on the show. Was that a Cantina After Dark one?
I can't remember. Yeah, we did break this whole thing down. I think on Cantina After Dark.
Because my speculation was George was like, oh, I got to write something so they buy it or whatever, and he kind of was coming up with something. That was my theory, I think, at the time or whatever. Yeah. But that's eons ago. But continue, sir.
No, well, and so the history is here. You've got George Lucas, who has his vision, right, and kind of what Mike's referring to here. You've got his vision of what the next three movies are going to look like, and that's probably been in the back of his head, given benefit of the doubt, forever, right? Ever since he conceived or conceptualized Star Wars. On top of that, you have Arndt, who's coming in as kind of the primary writer. Later on, they would add Kasdan, so they're bringing back Kasdan, who we've talked about quite a bit throughout this series. But initially, it was just him and Lucas, and so they started down the path. Arndt really took on this no-win situation of trying to write the next movie for the sequel trilogy. And after about a year that Michael Arndt was writing this, he actually failed, and this is, that's a harsh word, I guess, maybe, but it's reality. He wasn't able to produce after a full year a full script, right? He had little bits and pieces of it here and there, and if you had a chance to look at the art of The Force Awakens, there's a lot of information, a lot of background information. You can see some of the stuff that he talked about and was thinking about doing, but the movie that we ended up getting was very different, obviously, than how it originally started with Arndt. So he was actually booted off this as a scriptwriter. J.J. Abrams was brought in as a director, and then he and Kasdan came in along with Kennedy and kind of influenced where the movie went from that point. So they really had a big say in how the movie was going to play out. And it took a big shot, diverge. I mean, there's elements, again, scattered throughout all three of the movies that are still there.
Yeah.
The DNA is still there. But it really did take a different route from where Arndt's script was originally going, and certainly from George Lucas's script. And this is the one thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because I know you're pretty passionate about George Lucas, as we all are, really. But he, as part of the deal, when he sold this to Disney, he also sold the three movie ideas that he had. And if you read Iger's book, he goes into very, very candid detail about, hey, we bought them, but we never said we were going to use them. We did buy them probably out of respect, probably out of the fact that they had some creative work there that they could use later down the road. But they never committed that they would actually use these stories. And I think that burned a lot of people the wrong way, thinking that they're, I guess, feeling like, hey, this seems kind of shady that you would do this and say, oh yeah, we'll take your scripts as well, and then turn around and go, you know what, but we're not going to use them.
Well, it's hard to say, because you could interpret the way Bob explains this in the book as almost like they're both playing chess here, in a sense. Like, one, you could see Bob is, he bought the stories in case they were good, right?
Yeah.
Bought them because that's a smart thing to do, because, George, in his history and everything, this could be great. It also could be bad, which I think he thought in the end. And it makes it seem like he's trying to coax George into just selling it from the book. That's my perspective anyway. However, when you look at it, George, when they were talking back and forth, Bob kind of was like, it was like that period between both of them. And George went back and said, well, we're going to make 7, 8, 9. Is kind of my napkin thing. Aren't go and try to make a script out of this so we can sell it to Disney or whatever. That's kind of how I interpreted, at least from Bob's book, how it kind of went down, so to speak. Now, stuff's come out later on, like with The Last Jedi and all the backlash and all that stuff with The Last Jedi, and we'll get into that next week, I guess. Is, like the idea, I guess when it was coming out, George had said, oh, he'd concentrate on the macro level of the Force or something like that, the midichlorians. I don't know if he was
into
joking.
The wills and no, he was going to get into the midichlorians, get into the wills.
Yeah, I don't know if he was doing that to rile up the fans because he loves to do that, like with Jar Jar and all these other things. Who knows? Because George half jokes all the time. Who knows? But he probably would do that just to annoy the fans for the heck of it. I don't know. But who knows?
We'll talk about. So we'll get into some of the art. I want to. It's fascinating to me, and I know it's kind of a moot point because we'll never see it, right? And there'll never be a release the aren't script. That's never going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I do find it very interesting to kind of think where this may have gone at some point. And so we'll come back to that here in just a minute. But I do want to just kind of go back to George Lucas's initial thoughts when he had seen The Force Awakens. I mean, his exact quote was there was nothing new. There weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward. And I remember, was it this movie or the next one that he said it was a pretty movie? I think it was
Last Jedi. He said it was pretty.
So, but in this one, he was, again, not really pulling any punches. And to his credit, I mean, that's kind of what he was hoping that what would happen is that they would kind of push the envelope, right? Both from a technical perspective and then all from a visual perspective. And I mean, if the storytelling was there, great, but I don't think that was his primary focus outside of hitting his main points that he wanted.
Yeah, and he always pushed the film industry as well. Like when he's making a Star Wars movie, he's also doing something to push the film industry and the technology and the effects and everything else. It didn't seem like to him that they did that. They didn't have any like really anything new to add, like,
right.
In a sense, like I get where some people now in JJ's defense here, I get why people say he had to play it safe. I thought like when you go back to the original reaction shows, I said it was good. It was a good starting point, and I still stand with that. I mean, it's probably the best out of the 3 that we got, and it had a lot of potential in my eyes. And I thought it was a good. Okay, we played it safe, and okay, we got a good ending. I thought it was one of the good endings, and a lot of mystery there to go into the next 2. A lot of things were dropped. I'm like, okay, how are we going to tie this in and that in? And we'll get into those in a moment.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good. I get what George was saying, and I agree with him. And I agree with those people that say, "Oh, it's too much of a mix of Jedi, A New Hope, and Empire all in one kind of thing." Yes, it is, but it was also kind of being safe because you had to be. Because then you got the people that were complaining about the prequels, saying, "Well, this doesn't feel like Star Wars." Now, when you go that way, then it's like, "Well, this is just more of the same." Well, what do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't win.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it was a good move to play it safe as like, all right, this is kind of where we want to go. Then we'll figure it out in the next 2 and have a big payoff or whatever. But that's we'll debate those 2 in a few weeks. But anyway.
No, I agree. I think it's kind of like it was trying to find that balance between what is familiar but still new, right? What's still something that people can look forward to and something that's going to bring in a new fan base, a new group of followers. And did they hit that? I think they did. I mean, all indications show that they did. Was it polarizing?
Yeah.
Were these movies polarizing? Yeah, I think every one of them was kind of in their own right, in their own way, very polarizing.
But not this one. I thought. I mean, this one seemed.
Yeah, I
like,
mean, the worst.
There's problems, but okay, we can work with this. It's still kind of safe. And I think, let's see where we go. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, because if you look at all 3 of them, this is probably the least controversial of the 3. Like the biggest controversy that I can think of is one or two things. Han dies, which some people didn't like one way or the other, and then 2, it was too similar to A New Hope or too similar to Return of the Jedi, right? That was correct. But I mean, it was kind of in retrospect, looking at in comparison to the other 2 movies. Yeah, that's a walk in the park.
Yes.
All right. I mean, they did not have some of the bigger issues that we'll speak about a little bit later.
Yeah.
All right. So
next 2 weeks, we got plenty to talk about. Yeah.
So one of the other things too that was always interesting off screen about the Force Awakens before it started was this idea of how they hooked J.J. Abrams, because originally he was approached and said, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And there's this story, you can go out there and look, find it, but there's a story that he tells about how Kennedy went to him and just said, hey, I'm going to pose a question to you. Who is Luke Skywalker? And it was that question, and he almost says like literally seconds, if not minutes, right after he finally said, you know what, yes, I want to do this. And if you think about, and we're going to get into now with some of the stuff
guy
that
I'm not
going
to keep in my movie. That's and Adam in the last 2 seconds of the movie. That's the guy he is.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm going, because originally that was the direction that Kennedy had. That was the direction that George Lucas wanted. And when Art sat down to start writing the script, if you think about it from that perspective, a lot of the stuff that was cut out that we're going to talk about makes complete sense. The minute he was pulled out, that question of who is Skywalker isn't really getting addressed. I mean, it is in a very meta way, right? A little bit later down the road, especially in Last Jedi and all that, but it took a very different path. So some of the things that we missed out on.
I'll say this because it's the art book, which I always think even if you have like the Last Jedi, I have issues with and stuff, and I still got to get the Rise of Skywalker. You get to see the concept art and kind of get a good idea of where they're thinking. And there's this one I remember very vividly in the art book here is where Luke is being tormented by like a Sith spirit or whatever behind him. I think if we'd gotten just a few cutaway shots of him on the island and having that would have been awesome. Like, because then you could see, like, all right, Luke's struggling with something. What the heck's the problem? And we're trying to get to Luke. I get they wanted to have that whole surprise of Luke at the end. And, yeah, there was that payoff when he pulls the cloak over and everything else. But if we saw Luke being tormented, that might have been an interesting thing. I like that whole kind of like someone's in his head, like a Sith, and trying to mess with him, and maybe that's why he was. I don't know, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Go ahead.
No, I get it. I think it's fair. I mean, they certainly could have had the same effect and still not told the story of Luke Skywalker and put the focus on Rey and Finn and Poe, but still showed you some more, right? Given him more screen time. I don't think that would have been difficult to do. Yeah. So let's talk real quickly about the art script, because we haven't even got through everything for off screen, but. So originally, one of the big problems that he says he had was with Luke Skywalker was every time he was on screen, it's like he upstaged everybody, and
he always would.
He always would, exactly. I mean, that's just Luke Skywalker. He is going to be a dominant figure. He's going to upstage everything you do. So you've got to be able to write characters and have stories that kind of meet that, right, or come up to it at least. Otherwise, it can be a problem. So is it a problem in itself? I mean, it all depends, I guess, right? But that was one of the things he was struggling with. We were going to have Han and Leia live, so Han wasn't going to originally die. We get a bit of that.
And done it.
Well, that's very true. I mean, I think he only signed on because he did die.
Yeah.
But originally they were going to stay together. They were going to kind of reconcile, come together after being apart for so many years, and then they would live on to the second, maybe even third movies. So it was really about their relationship mending again, which is something we saw very shortly, very briefly in The Force Awakens, but not to the extent of how it was originally set up. Originally they were going to be in search of the Jedi temples. If you look at the art book, you can see that where they're kind of doing a lot of underwater type exploration. There's almost like this archaeology kind of thing going on with a lot of the artwork there. Poe Dameron was supposed to die sometime in Act 2. The original characters were Sam and Kira, so they were the grandchildren of Luke Skywalker and Leia and Han. So you had Sam, who eventually would turn into Finn. You had Kira, whose name would end up being used in Solo, Star Wars story, and Kira would become Rey in this as well. And they were very different characters. I mean, you had Sam was kind of like this smuggler pirate guy. And then that turned into he was defecting member of the First Order. For Kira, she was going to be kind of like this really charismatic lightsaber wielding thing, and then one of them would get tempted a little bit down the road, and I think it was supposed to be Sam, who would end up becoming the ultimate bad guy later down the road, and that would bring in Darth Talon. So in back to what you were saying in the art of The Force Awakens, there are actually, if you're familiar with who Darth Talon is, she's kind of like this Twi'lek looking red character. She's got I don't know if you can pull up, find an image of that. It's pretty cool. She's pretty cool looking. But originally she was going to be in here, and she would be kind of this seductor. She would seduce, I think, Sam's character, and that would turn him to the dark side. And then later down the road, either Luke or Kira or Rey would confront this person, and that would kind of be the ultimate baddie there.
Whoa.
Yeah, you might want to be careful what you pull up.
No, I forget. I forget. We'll go with.
She does not wear a lot of clothing.
Yes.
So Darth Talon was somebody that was supposed to be in there, and then I think there was supposed to be some kind of connection to Darth Maul at some point. Anyways, so other things that we missed out on were the midichlorians and the wills, and yeah, I kind of take him at his word. I think he was interested in doing that. I mean, he's very purposeful in what he does, right? He doesn't just do a lot of. He's not like J.J. Abrams, and this is not a slight on J.J. Abrams because I'm a huge fan of Lost in the mystery box. I actually do like that.
That's overplayed.
As sick as that may sound.
Certain point of view is overplayed too, but that's a whole other. I know I'm grumpy.
You are grumpy today, but but yeah, I mean, I actually enjoy that. At the same time, I don't think that's Lucas's style, right? I think he has a purpose, whether you like it or not. He's got a purpose for everything that he does, and he did not put midichlorians in Episode 1 just to go, oh, I'm not going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, no,
right?
he might. The payoff will be there at some point, and he kind of gets to it again when they're at the opera scene. He kind of talks about it or whatever. And he gives his little hit. He just doesn't name it outright throughout, like the Clone Wars and everything. Like it's mentioned at times, right? So he would have done something. I would have loved him to do something with the Wills, which I imagine he probably would, and something to do with R2 and C-3PO because they're the ones that hold the story for all of us, right? So it's almost like I could see him doing something like that, and it would have been cool, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, and then I guess the last one that was kind of I think it would have been a really big one was having Anakin's ghost appear. And that was
a missed opportunity, but
it could be. Yeah, right. I know there was a lot of people that were looking forward to it. There was plenty of rumors, which we're going to talk about here in just one second, that were floating around about who was going to be in this movie and who was who and all that. But this is one of the ones that surfaced, and there was actually some credibility here because if you go back to a lot of the some of the artwork, there's pictures of what Anakin would look like, and he was in this kind of a half dark, half light face, which
it's cool, but that's not that. Craps on his
one, from Revenge of the Sith, or Return of the Jedi. Thank you.
No
Final
problem.
Answer.
The last one that we did was Return of the Jedi.
Sure,
Albert.
that one.
It's okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that would be 6. But anyway,
that would be
go ahead.
6. Okay, so with that, let's move into rumors. And boy, my goodness. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, and we're not going to go through all these. But I
got to be honest. I'm getting exhausted even thinking about going back in time and thinking of all these rumors that we covered back all those years ago. I mean, it was exhausting, to be honest.
And that's probably the takeaway is it was exhausting. It was hard to keep up with the number of rumors that were going out. And it seemed like everybody had a scoop. Everybody was a credible, source. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think what this movie did more than anything is it shook out who was actually credible and who wasn't. I mean, it went from a list of X amount of people that we were getting news from, rumors from. And when this movie came out and we were able to validate that, I mean, it shrunk down to like 2 or 3, right? 2 or 3 people that you could really trust to kind of deliver the spoilers and deliver the rumors.
I remember getting some spoilers. I remember that. I remember getting the spoilers and then seeing it happen.
Yeah.
Like I had the intel prior to, and only a few weeks before the movie came out, I got the actual stuff, and I was like, oh, and you see it, and it's interesting to be in that position. That was weird. That was very surreal to have that. You got the intel, and then you see it, and it came true, and you're like, "Oh, wow!"
And I can say I can attest to that because it wasn't until watching that stuff as a normal fan, not having a show, having any context. It's like it was all good, it was all fun. It wasn't until I joined this show that I started getting some of those pics sent over from certain people, and I won't mention any names. But the one that comes to mind was the burning tree, and this is like. The burning tree from the Last Jedi, and this was months, if not a year, before the movie came out.
Yeah,
and it came across, and I'm looking at this thing, going, "What in the world?" And it's just weird. And then you see it on screen, you're like, "Holy cow!" I remember seeing that like a year ago. But anyways, it's not to brag, but it is a surreal moment when that happens. I get what you're saying. Yeah. All right, but what was the? I guess I have Finn was a Jedi. That's not. This is the one that kind of I don't know. It may bother you, and you can see it in my background here. Where am I? Over here.
Yeah, he's over.
Yeah, this guy.
That side? Yeah.
Yeah,
over
side.
Here. Yeah.
But anyways,
there we go.
Anyway, they did this, and I mean, they released all these teaser posters and everything else, but they kind of were really trying to set you up to think that, oh, this is the Jedi, right? This is the person that's going to take on the mantle of Luke Skywalker, and then kind of turn it at the very end there, where it's Rey now. But were you ever fooled by this? No,
I always thought Rey she's going to be the hero. She was somehow going to have the lightsaber. I didn't think Finn. I thought Finn might become a Jedi Like, yeah, okay, that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't think, especially when we saw him once you get the Thanksgiving Day trailer where he pops up there and he's got the stormtrooper thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, he's not a. Although some people still speculated for a while. I mean, that was even up till recently, the Rise of Skywalker people were, and now of course he is because we'll get into that in a few weeks. But yep, that happened. Did I ever have a problem with it? No, I really didn't have a problem with it. I didn't think it was a big deal. Like, I was like, okay, I didn't at this point in time when we first got into all this, I didn't care who was a Jedi, who was what. Actually,
right.
just tell me, make sure the character's good. Right? Like, that's what I wanted, and I knew Rey was gonna, and I wanted her to be the female version of Luke Skywalker. Really, that's what I was hoping at the time. And yeah, that's the way I took it. And well, things were a little crazy when we got into the movies and saw the movie and all that happened. So that'll be an interesting progression as we go with this analysis of the sequel trilogy. But well, what about you? What was your?
I mean, there was, again, I'd have to go back and look. I mean, the one that I have in my notes because it stood out for me was thinking, or I guess I remember reading that Hux was a Skywalker, that he was actually the son of Skywalker, and that turned out to be, I mentioned earlier that, excuse me, one of the characters was a defector, and then it turned into that person was a traitor. But there was a long article that I read, and it was from a credible source at the time that said that was, this is a very good possibility and very likely. I believe the source. He's been good for me, that kind of thing, and that turned out obviously to be false.
Well, he looked like he could have. I remember some fan art or whatever where he was a Jedi, and it was like Ben Skywalker, which was one of my favorite EU characters, which would have been cool in my book, but that didn't happen. I remember one was rumored that he was going to be Tarkin's like grandkid or something like that.
Oh wow, no, I don't remember.
Oh yeah, that was.
I mean, everybody was related to everybody. That's probably
I know,
fair.
and I get that. I would like. I get you got to expand the galaxy. You can't have everybody related to each other, but it's hard to do. And this is the challenge with the whole sequel trilogy, right? Is you have these legacy characters that are bigger than life.
Yes.
To the fandom for 40 some odd years. How do you overcome that? And Arndt ran into that problem, right? I think everybody did on this whole thing. It's not easy. So hats off to George for trying to do it, with the prequel trilogy again. And he realized maybe I'll let other people do this, and then they can deal with that. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. Well, he said as much. Why everyone's going to hate me anyway. So why do I do it? So but
let's talk about the trailers.
Yes, let's do
trailers
it.
Because I know this is Is this still true? This is your favorite trailer, right? Of all, well, let me ask you. I'll just ask a question a different way. Of all of the trailers that have ever been released, what is your favorite?
The one that was at Celebration.
Was it for this one though? For Force Awakens?
Yes.
Okay.
This one. Right. That's where he says the Force runs strong in my family, and this is where they lied to us and really played with our emotions.
Yes.
The original. Yeah, because this is what we were hoping. I know some people didn't want to be a Skywalker, all that other thing. But at the moment when that trailer hits and they're telling you this, I think this added to the to the angst and the fandom later on down the road. Maybe I'm just looking at it that way, but that was my favorite. I don't know. I thought it was cool the way she's on the thing and you go by the what do you call it? The Star Destroyers that have crashed and everything, and you're like, ooh, wow,
what's going on there?
What's going on? And you're hearing Luke's voice and all that other stuff, and then you see Vader's mask. That was epic. You're like, oh, I didn't think we would ever see a burnt mask of Vader here, and the mystery was there. There was a lot of one thing JJ does. He does do a good trailer. I'll give him that.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably fair.
Which one was? And plus, I was at Celebration. It was like an amazing experience, and to see that, I didn't get to see it in the theater like live or anything, but they pushed us into certain sections where you could go and watch it. Like there was rooms where you could go in and check them out on the screen, and it was pretty cool. And then when we got out, as soon as we get out of that, there was a room next to us, and it had all the costumes. We just immediately just kind of walked into there and get to see all the costumes and stuff, and got to see Kylo Ren and everything. That was an interesting. Your imagination was spinning at that point, and I think that trailer did that. Like that really. I know the one that we got at Thanksgiving caused a stir. Right, we got all excited, Finn, and we got the introduced. You see Kylo in the forest doing the thing. That was pretty cool. That got us all excited. But then this, and with Luke's voiceover and everything, it just everybody. That's when I think the fire really just lit and everybody was coming up with every kind of theory under the sun or speculation.
Sure. Yeah.
This show no different than anyone else. We've done it a million times. But what about you? What was your favorite trailer?
Well, my favorite trailer is whatever movie's coming out. That seems like the one I'm like infatuated with. But I always go back after that's kind of settled down. I always go back to episode 1. Just because I think I mentioned this on the show. It was right around the time that the internet was really starting to boom. High speed internet, and being able to see that and watch it at my own leisure whenever I wanted to, because I could get it from Apple QuickTime at the time. That was probably my favorite. But this particular trailer,
one, I mean, I like that one where it says every saga has a beginning, and you see the beginning. And actually, that song where they're coming out of the swamp or whatever, the Gungans.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite songs when they're doing the thing. When you get into that song, it's a good battle song. But anyway, continue. I don't mean
no. Well, so that one, and then the special edition, if that counts, is always one of my favorites too.
I don't even remember. I don't remember them. I don't.
But
I'll have to look them up
back
later.
to the Force Awakens. This trailer here, the teaser was awesome, and I think every movie in the sequel, like you said, I think they've done a really great job with those trailers. So
even the Last Jedi one. The Last Jedi one was pretty good too.
I watched that millions of times. Easily.
Where Luke is speaking and everything. Yeah, so they do good trailers. I'll give you that.
Okay, so let's just talk about the soundtrack finally, last thing, and we'll kind of intermix this with the rest of the show, or throughout the rest of the show here. But how did you feel about this particular soundtrack? I
thought it was weak.
Really?
I think this is John Williams' worst Star Wars track. I know people are gonna, want to.
Here come the comments.
Yeah, they're gonna want to throw things at me and everything, and maybe rightfully so. I mean, it's not bad. I just think when you compare it to all the other stuff, it's I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know. Maybe because it was just very different than what I'm used to, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like, it could be 5 years from now, and I could play it and be like, oh, you know what? It's not bad. Like, I could end up liking it 5 years from now. It's just at the time and presently, I just think it's the weakest out of the bunch. The Return of the The Last Jedi is more familiar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's too much. I don't know. And the Rise of Skywalker.
You're saying you need 10 years at least to really think about
it. Maybe.
Exactly. 5 years.
5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, whatever.
Who knows? But yeah, like The Last Jedi was more, and we'll get into it next week. But then the Rise of Skywalker, a little more familiar, I guess. So I don't know. This one just seemed weakest out of all the movies we've seen.
I've got a different opinion. Shocker.
I'm sure you do.
But it's I get what you're saying. I honestly do, because it does sound a little different, and I think
Solo's like that too. Solo, you got to get used to. Like, Solo's not bad. You just got to kind of acquire the taste after a while. I don't know. Continue.
Okay, so the soundtrack. I get what you're saying. There are things that now, and this is probably unfair for me to say, but now that I've heard The Last Jedi and I've heard the Rise of Skywalker soundtracks, it makes me appreciate the Force Awakens soundtrack, because a lot of what we hear in those two movies and a lot of the themes that I like and the moments that I like in those two movies have its origins in the groundwork that was created. And so I credit obviously John Williams to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's very similar to what he did with, like, for both the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. Those first two movies, the first movie in both of those trilogies really sets the groundwork, and he just kind of plays and builds upon a lot of those themes. And so, out of the gate, did they really hit you kind of like the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy? Maybe not, but there are some things in there, like Rey's theme is a big standout. Kylo's theme is a big standout. The Resistance theme is a big standout. And again, if you look at all of the soundtracks, again, holistically and as a sequel trilogy now, I think it does help all of them. They all kind of build on and kind of reinforce one another. So from that angle, I do like this soundtrack quite a bit. And I find myself, when I want to go back and listen to Star Wars, this is one of the ones that I'll put in prior. Like, if I had to pick between all three of them in the sequel trilogy, this is the one that I would put in first and foremost. But anyways, yeah, I really do like it, and I think it had some standout tracks. I know a lot of people that felt like you did, Mike. I know a lot of people that said, outside of the three that I mentioned, everything else is kind of, maybe Snoke's chanting.
I do like that one. That one's good.
That tends to be a favorite for everybody. But then why is that? Is it because we like the song, or is it because it reminds us of Palpatine? I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, Snoke is a whole other topic I hope we get to here.
Well, we're going to get to some of it here.
But yeah, his theme, I loved his theme. It was very, yeah, it's kind of like Palpatine's teachings, I guess you could say, from the Revenge of the Sith. That's
right.
Similar. So
Similar.
I guess, yeah. But I like all those dark, and that's probably why Revenge of the Sith for me is like the best, because it's that dark.
It is dark, yeah.
You know, that tone or whatever. But anyway.
The Star Killer is another one, another standout track for me.
Yeah,
in that whole scene, and we'll talk about it here in a second, but the music that's playing when that scene happens and Star Killer is destroying the Hosnian Prime system, that's, you know,
I loved Hux's speech, though. That's one of my favorite moments in the movie. That's a good inspirational speech, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
you
I
would.
thought so, yes. It motivated me in podcasting, I'll say that.
Oh, jeez. I don't want to know the story behind that.
Yeah,
okay, let's get into let's get into the on-screen stuff. Here we go. We're only 35 minutes into the show. Let's get into the screen, the on-screen stuff, and we're going to start from the very beginning because this was a moment, and it was jarring for me. I didn't know how I was going to react. I had already heard the rumors about how this was going to look, but we did not get, obviously, the 20th Century Fox logo. We didn't get the fanfare. We didn't get the lead-in. What's that?
It was Alien.
It was Alien? Yeah, for you too?
Yeah, for growing up with it and seeing it, and I know Disney, didn't they do something prior? Did they release something? I don't know what they did. It was at the 4K where they took the fanfare out or something. I can't remember what the hell it was, but it wasn't there. Or maybe it was, I don't know what it was, but they took it out for some reason or something. I can't remember what the hell it was, but in any case, it was weird when you're there because it's almost, it feels like part of the opening of Star Wars. Like that fanfare just goes with the bang, and then it's Star Wars, you know? It just all hits you, and then we just got this whatever thing.
It was kind of like the preamble, right? It was the preamble to what we would expect and what we'd love, and it was removed, and so it was just kind of like, you just jumped right in.
Star Wars, right in your face. I mean, it wasn't, they did okay considering the history of it, and now, of course, they can do it again, so
sure.
You know,
if they wanted. I don't think they ever will.
No, of course
not. It's
not
their brand.
No, of course not. Disney won't do that, but they should.
And then
at least with the originals.
One of the other things that kind of sticks in my mind. No, I'm not. One of the other things that sticks in my mind about this time too is it was odd not seeing lightsabers. And if you remember back when this movie released, I mean, we were coming off the heels of a number of shootings, right, that were happening by young Americans in theaters and everything else, and so they were not allowing any kind of objects to come into the theater with you. And so I remember sitting there watching The Force Awakens for the very first time and expecting everybody to throw up the lightsabers like I had just seen, not that long ago. Well, maybe it was, but not that long ago with the sequel or the prequel trilogy.
Revenge of the Sith, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see any of that stuff. So that was just a little bit odd, and not that it took away from the movie by any means. And I think by the time we got to Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, that kind of came back. But at least when this movie came out, in at least in my area, they weren't allowing that to happen. The one thing too, the opening crawl, that line of Luke Skywalker has vanished.
Yeah.
Was that unsettling for you as a big Luke fan, seeing that right out of the gate? I mean, they pulled the Band-Aid right off and kind of just said, look, chances are you're not going to see him in this movie because he's.
Well, it didn't bother me then. It added the mystery thing. I'm like, okay, JJ, you're playing your whole mystery box thing. All right, that's fine. I was more intrigued. Like, okay, why would he do that? The reasons we get in the next movie, which we'll discuss next week, I'm not going to get into here, but it was intriguing. Like, okay, why would he leave? What was this? And then when Han says, well, he went to the first Jedi temple. It's like, okay, he went to go do something because he knew he had, you're thinking these things, something very big to do. That's not what the real reason was, apparently. But that's next week's show, so I won't get into that. But it wasn't jarring. It was more intrigue for me at that time. So it seemed like you would.
Yeah, it did for me a little bit. I am a Luke Skywalker fan. Everybody should know that if you listen to the show. He is my favorite character. To see that was kind of like, because I didn't. The rumors were out there, but you couldn't believe it. There were a dime a dozen. I couldn't believe anything. So it wasn't like how I was going into The Last Jedi nor The Rise of Skywalker, where I came in with some very concrete and validated information and already knew what was going to happen. So I wasn't really expecting to see that. And for me, I just remember having almost kind of like, I wouldn't say visceral reaction, but certainly a physical reaction of like, well, crap, is he even in this movie? Right? There was already rumors about that, and seeing that line that he'd vanished, I started kind of putting two to two together and thinking, well, I hope we get to see him in like Act 1 or Act 2. Much to my dismay, we didn't see him till the very end of the movie, but that's your moment. We'll talk about that later. So
yeah,
so that was kind of a little bit jarring. Let's talk about our first big character.
I'll say this, just to go back to like the spoilers, and I'd gotten information, and my former co-host got information, and the person sent it to us, and we read it, and we immediately, and we've said this on the show before in the past, we hated what we saw because Luke was not there till the very end, and it turned out to be true, and we were like, this is just absolute awful.
Garbage.
Yeah. But it kind of worked when you saw it on the screen. Like, all right, the execution wasn't bad. But continue, sir. I just want to bring that point.
That's fair. And I would say that a lot of the rumors that we've gotten in the past, and especially with Last Jedi, I think more than anything, going into that, now we're talking about Last Jedi, but going into that one, there were a lot of things that we had solid confirmation on that I didn't like. And then when I saw them on screen, they were okay. And it took a while to get used to those and reconcile them. Yeah, we're different, but to reconcile them. But anyways,
we're very different, but very kind of similar. But anyway, continue.
Let's get
not
back
get
on track
into the
here.
Last Jedi.
I know.
Let's get back on track.
Itching to talk about Last Jedi.
Not
Poe
really,
Dameron and Kylo Ren. So we got our first introduction to these two characters with Poe right out of the gate. I mean, Oscar Isaac's personality, I think, was spot on. I think he did an amazing job throughout. I don't think he ever had a weak performance. Honestly, especially given what he had to work with in terms of script. But I thought he did a great job. And then we're introduced to Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren, I mean, we could do it. We have done shows on him. But I would say overall, his presence was ominous. I never felt like he felt like he was scary, but he was really just in the shadow of Vader. And that's what they were going for, right? I mean, that's the purpose. That was the whole purpose of this thing, right? He was not Vader. He was supposed to be a young boy in a mask that was acting real tough and could do some tough things. We saw that certainly from him. But I thought they nailed it. I really liked the mask. I liked the look, the presence, the cross-hilt saber. We got the introduction to some new powers that we had never seen, like with the mind probing, at least in canon anyways. But like the mind probing and then the stasis ability, being able to freeze bolts and being able to freeze people. These were all very interesting things that I thought they did a great job with. And then, obviously the presence of Adam Driver and just the mammoth of a person that physical being is. I thought it all really worked really well. But what did you think? I mean, again, I know you were kind of going in with some hard evidence and hard rumors confirmed, but what did you think about, Adam Driver and Poe Dameron and their first appearances here?
The first appearance, I didn't think much of Kylo. I liked them better, ironically, when we get into The Last Jedi and even The Rise of Skywalker. But that's more of Adam's a good actor, so I think that's what shines throughout here. It's like Ewan McGregor in the prequels, right? This is kind of the same thing here. He's the one that stood up above, at least in my opinion. You could disagree, that's fine. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with Kylo. I was kind of like, okay, well, where are we going with this kind of thing? But yeah, I mean, it was cool. He was cool. It's just, I'm like, all right, you're wannabe Vader. I get it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it was all right. He didn't do much for me. I mean, the interesting thing is like his behaviors and what he was doing sparked the psychology of Kylo Ren, the show that we did eons ago.
Yeah.
Which was really good. I like that. I like doing that psychology episode, and that was pretty fun. His character is probably the most interesting of the sequel trilogy, I'd have to say, because it gives you those kinds of debates. And he's a dark side character, and they usually are a conflicted character, and that's what happens with those characters. They become the more interesting ones, right? So, but what did you think?
Well, I mean, I kind of gave you my thoughts. I think overall, though, he ended up becoming my favorite character of the sequel trilogy. Yeah. And I could go on and on about him, which we will over the course of the next two shows.
All right, fair enough.
Did
you like the Cross God or no?
I had problems with it initially, and this is Albert's practical mind thinking here. Like, okay, wait,
is this one of the pet peeves coming up?
Well, it is because the cross. Where are we going? Here comes the cross saber dissection.
We always have a pet peeve in these episodes. Go ahead.
So you've got unless the metal itself is kind of like somehow is like a force field around it, then any other lightsaber that comes out. I mean, the purpose of a cross hilt is, and I'm channeling I'm channeling my Dungeons and Dragons days. But the purpose of a cross hilt is to protect your hand, your wrists, right, from getting nicked. And with the lightsaber, if the lightsaber just kind of came down on that hilt, it would, unless again that's somehow shielded or some way cut through it.
But in the movie, it's kind of explained it's used as a close quarters weapon. It's more of like, it's like a pocket knife at that point where he stabs Finn in the shoulder, right? So it's kind of more like not so much for defense. It's more of like, granted, I think it's more for stable. The crystal's cracked and it's trying to, I don't know. There's a lot of things like, but then the Jedi had these too, right? So what is the real, and maybe with the High Republic, we may get some more explanation. I don't know. I mean, other than it's cool, I guess you could say. So,
it's definitely cool looking. I'll give it that. And I did
what
like
we go with. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that cool. But
cool factor 10, practical factor, I don't know,
0.
5.
But, it's like having one of those cool cars. It's not practical around on these roads, but man, you look great.
You look awesome in it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next bit of characters. So we get the Scavenger, the Defector, and then the Return of the Falcon. So we're speaking about Rey, Finn, and the Return of the Falcon. So just quick thoughts on seeing those three, the first two for the first time, and then for the Falcon, the Return of the Falcon, and how that was presented.
Well, Rey was intriguing. I liked her character. At least I liked her in this one. I thought she was engaging and whatnot. Poe and Finn were interesting. There's something that never. This is my pet peeve, and I got a fly that's in the middle of here. So if I'm shooing, that's why there's a big horse fly. So, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, my problem with Finn and Poe, I like them, but I think their characters went in ways that I think the actors could have done better justice for themselves, those characters. But that's for the next few weeks. The problem I had, this is my pet peeve. We each have like a pet peeve throughout each movie we've done throughout the show, is Poe kills Finn's friend who wipes the blood on his helmet, right? And that never gets resolved. Like, oh, dude, I killed your friend. Like, and they're all buddy. Like, I don't know. That just seems to bother me that they never.
Well, I don't think I don't know. I don't think the benefit of the doubt here is that he didn't actually see
I get
Poe shoot, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, that was Poe that killed him. And had he known, I think that maybe that relationship would have been a little bit different, but I get it.
I don't know. I mean, he was a stormtrooper, so maybe Poe's like, well, he was a stormtrooper, so he got over. I don't know. It just seemed goofy to me. But anyway, that's my pet peeve. Continue, sir.
Well, so Scavenger girl, Rey's character, she was, I think she's great. I don't see her as a Mary Sue. Let me just get this out of the way, pull the Band-Aid off on that a little bit later. We can talk about more of that. But I thought Daisy Ridley did a great job. I had no idea who she was, and I think she did a really great job in all three of the movies. And I really feel like she did grow, right? Her character grew in all three movies, but her acting grew in all three movies. Like some of the stuff she does in this movie, she's got moments in there where I think she really pulls it off. And there are other weaker moments, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's not that weak. But as the movies went on, especially when she got to The Last Jedi, I saw this kind of growth in her and the way she was acting and how she was kind of bringing Rey to life. And then by the time I get to The Rise of Skywalker, I think she was kind of, hit her stride at least with the character and that acting ability. So
I will say, I think this is what I'll say. The actors are all good. Actors and actresses are all good. It's like The Walking Dead. I think they're really great actors. The problem is the script is always like the writing or whatever. You can't blame the actors if it's, a certain character doesn't do what you think they should do or whatever. I just want to point that out, that just so we know, we're clear. I think Daisy's great. I think she's a good actress. Same thing with John and Oscar and all that. Their characters are a completely different thing. But we'll get into that as we go along here. But they're all great. And I think they did more for the characters than if it had been somebody else. I don't think they could have given life, so to speak. I'll leave it at that. But anyway,
we kind of hit on this when we were talking about Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. We were talking about why is this movie so great? Why is it held in such high regard? And what we said then is it does really take kind of three primary dynamics to work. You've got to have a good script, you got to have good actors, and you got to have a good director, right? And you could even throw in cinematography and sound to some extent on those. But if you at least have those three, you got a pretty good product. And sometimes when you see a movie and you don't like it, it's because one of those three is weaker. And it's kind of, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint where it's at. Is it the actor that's not giving everything they've got? Is it the script that's kind of clunky and the actor can't really connect with it? Is it the director that's not, maybe reading the script differently and interpreting it differently? All that plays into it. And so I totally agree with that all three of these, all the main characters here, they took the approach that we had with the original trilogy and introducing like these unknown actors and kind of putting them with these veteran actors, kind of like we had with Alec Guinness and Hamill and Ford and all that. I think that formula certainly works. So, hopefully we continue to see that as more movies come out here.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as the Falcon, that was kind of an emotional moment for me, to be honest. It's just because it pans over and you see it, and they cut to the music playing.
Immediately,
and you really realize that, and then she says that the junk will do, or the garbage will do.
Yeah.
But I think I had that same moment, a little bit later, obviously, when Han and Chewie walk in and say, Chewie, we're home.
We're home. Yeah.
That's how I felt. I mean, that was kind of, that line for me was very much a meta line of, this is what we're all experiencing. This is all what we're thinking. This is all we're saying and feeling as we sit here now, so many years after Return of the Jedi, and watching a Star Wars movie on the big screen all over again, and seeing these familiar characters that we had not seen in 30 years or so.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't that a big a moment for me. The Falcon it's cool. I don't know. It just seemed weird. I wanted to know why the Falcon was there, why Rey was there, why did Ugar Plunk have it, and all that, and we didn't really. We kind of got it, like someone stole it from someone in that. I just thought that was kind of, I don't know. Anyway.
So let's talk next about I want to talk about a line that I know you guys dissected way on. This predates me coming onto the show, but you guys dissected this probably ad nauseum, but this is the line of "What girl," right? And the thought behind this of, at the time, and I want you to kind of give me your thoughts at the time, what you all were thinking about with "What girl." And then, obviously, I think we know what this is now. Like, we have the benefit of having seen all three movies, and we can kind of say, oh, this is exactly what was going on here. Whether we like it or not, we can at least say with a lot of certainty now what that was. But at the time, what were you guys speculating about here with What Girl?
Oh, God, I can't even remember at the time. I'd have to go back and listen to those episodes, and I'm not doing that. But
I can tell you.
Well, go ahead. Please tell me, what was I thinking, sir? This will be interesting.
Well, I mean, I think the prevailing theory here and a lot of other places was him saying what girl.
Yeah.
That was that okay? He knew who this girl was. That led to a lot of theories of it was Kylo Ren who dropped off Rey, right? So that Rey was Rey was a student of Luke Skywalker. She was a youngling at the time, and all this happened, and for whatever reason, Kylo Ren dropped her off on Jakku. Yeah. And he knew that she was out there, and so that was the What Girl. I mean, that was kind of, again, a prevailing theory. There was a billion of them out there. We're not going to get into every one of them, but it was a talking point. That line was talked about so much on different shows, not this show, but other shows.
Everybody,
as well.
We all did it. It was the drug, man. We all did it, man. That's just the way it was. But yeah, I guess I don't know if I thought you would be like more specific as far as like, I think we were trying to say. Maybe she was a Solo at the point, if I remember right, or something. There was some kind of relation. That's why he kind of something triggers, and that's why even Snoke, says a girl bested you or whatever he was saying there with when he was talking to her, and leading to believe that there's some other reason or something. I don't know, some kind of connection there. Turns out to be a dyad later on down the line there, but at the time, I think we were thinking, well, something happened there, and. With Solo, I think Solo might have been the leading thing at the early onset of that, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to that, but I probably won't go.
Yeah, I think we were. Well, it was like one of three camps. You were either in the she's a Kenobi, and we'll kind of get into this now. We can get into it now. It's fine since you brought it up because I want to talk about it a little bit later when she opens the box and touches the lightsaber. But I mean, really. Early on, and this debate went on, but you kind of fell into one of three camps, primarily speaking. Now, again, there was a billion theories out there, so we're not going to touch on every one of them, but the primary three were she was a Kenobi, she was a Skywalker, or she was a Solo, right?
Yeah.
And depending on...
Well, some said Palpatine back then. I got to give him credit. There's a few.
We're going to talk about that, because at the very end, there is one thing that I will give the Palpatine theorists back then credit for as to why she was, but hold that thought.
Okay, hold it.
Hold it.
I'm holding.
Anyway, so it was. We don't need we've got a lot of show here to go on, so we'll move past. I just want. I guess the talking point here is that it was
my bedtime is coming here. Albert.
It was a line that certainly stuck out and was spoken about quite a bit. We talked about Chewie, you're home. That's another big moment, obviously, seeing Han and Chewie back in the Falcon. That moment when Han walks into the cockpit and he just kind of has that moment to himself. He's got that smile on his face, and you can see all three kind of flashing in the background. I mean, all that is, I just love it. It's very quick, it's very short, but it's very poignant, especially given what we were thinking. It was just that nostalgia was back, and not right or wrong, good or bad, this movie delivers a ton of nostalgia for anybody that grew up with the original trilogy.
Oh, we're home. All right, he's gonna die now. He's completed his thing. He got his ship back. Now he's gonna die. He only had like 10 minutes with his ship, and now that's it. I kind of felt bad for Han at that point. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you're gonna die. You just got your ship back, and you even crashed it. I don't know. Felt bad for him.
Well,
but anyway,
he was gonna die. Okay, let's get to
I saw
Snoke.
the video prior to
Snoke in Starkiller Base.
Yes.
Really, this is kind of in this scene here we're introduced to who Snoke was, and obviously the mystery
thing with him. Basically we were talking about, is that even him? Is it like the Wizard of Oz thing? I remember talking about that because it was a hologram and like it's larger than life, and then we're thinking like, well, the Emperor was like that with Vader in Empire. Is this like the same thing there? Turns out kind of, sort of, because he is kind of tall.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he was a puppet after all. Although we didn't get much explanation on that. I hope we get that at some point. I know we had a little bit of it in a comic, but not too much of it. But yeah, I remember all that. That was Snoke was quite the I don't know. He was quite the subject for a while, but
he was a subject for almost the better part of 3 years at least. Ever since we saw him and heard the voice and who is he, that kind of thing. But the big things around him were, one, why is he scarred?
Yeah,
there was a lot of was it Luke? What had happened? We'd gotten a lot of information about his background, and we come to realize, okay, he's his mentor, and just how he. We had that in the novelization that talked about how he was around during the fall of the Rise of the Sith, right? So that kind of dated him out to like the prequel eras. So there was a lot of information that was given to us about him, but we knew nothing really more than that, and we wouldn't know a whole lot more than that, to be honest. It wasn't until the comic book came out that we got even just something, and it wasn't a whole lot of much right there. So, but those were all obviously the big things in his character. Andy Serkis, I thought, did an excellent job. I think he looked better to me, obviously, because he was a hologram in The Force Awakens than he did in The Last Jedi. But again, conversation for another day. But that was all great. Starkiller Base. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off on that. It's now Ilum, which I think is awesome.
I don't like that.
Of course you don't. Why don't you like it? Tell me though.
Every
opinion's valid here.
Not mine. Mine's not valid. It really isn't. I've only done this for 9 years. It doesn't mean squat. I can tell nobody's opinion really means anything. But
what is it? What do you like about it?
I don't know. Maybe it's because of the lore that's out there, and then the whole what you see in what do you call it? The Clone Wars, where they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
The planet doesn't necessarily look like the planet we see in The Force Awakens there. So I don't know, but who knows? There's different parts of the planet, right? It's a big planet. It's not all going to be ice. It's led to believe it's an ice ball. But it wasn't.
Yeah, and even like in Legends, it was an ice ball. But yet when we get to the planet in Force Awakens, there's trees, and it doesn't look like it's like Hoth, right? That's kind of what we're thinking.
It's near the equator, and they've been ripping things up, so maybe the climate's changed. I'll give them that. And then, of course, in the Ahsoka novel, that's where they're doing what they're doing, and you assume that's the beginning of Starkiller Base.
Right.
I don't know. I just didn't like it. I guess it's a better idea than having another, and it makes sense because of the crystals, right? So it makes sense that they would do this. I get that, but I don't know. I just didn't like that as a super weapon anyway. I don't know. I mean, It looked better than a Death Star, like Death Star 3. I mean, but it technically is Death Star 3, so I don't know. It just didn't. It looked cool. It fired cool. I liked the speech before the firing the laser and everything. I thought that was great. But again, and then you get is a hyperspace laser thing that goes and does. I don't know what it does, but it's an interesting thing.
You mean to move it around?
Yeah, like it just does. It goes like it jumps light speed, or I don't know what it does, but supposedly, who knows?
It's Star Wars science, yeah.
I know the physics, they never match up, but it's whatever you want it to be at the time. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think? Obviously you liked it. You liked. I
liked it. I liked the idea because I've always liked the planet of Ilum just from the Legends days and the fact that they had brought it in. Now they never said that in the movie, and it wasn't only until like the last 2 or 3 years that this was actually like solidly confirmed.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, and we didn't have the privilege of going, oh, that's Ilum. I mean, I think there were people that speculated, and then there was just little hints that were kind of dropped throughout. But
yeah,
anyways,
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't like it.
Okay. Let's talk about the "It's True, All of It" moment, because this was another big moment in the movie where we finally get some. Han Solo's kind of giving us the backstory about. He's a very different character now, right? We see that obviously, and this is probably proof of that he is a different person. He's no longer the person that believed in a whole bunch of hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, and all that. No magic force, controlling his destiny. He's 100% all in. He believes it. He says it's true, all of it. He tells about how Luke Skywalker, the Jedi, all that, but
real. The Sith.
was all real. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just it was a good character moment for him, and it stood out. I mean, I think it was this one. I think it was a moment that was in the trailers too, if I'm not mistaken. Or he said it's true, all of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was certainly highlighted. But anyways, that was it. The only thing really there is it was a good character moment for him, and kind of the reveal of where Luke Skywalker was, and the fact that he was gone. From that, we get over into the next big scene, which was the Cantina revisited, if you will, and this was Maz Kanata's castle, and kind of the people, the band that was playing there.
Your favorite character?
Oh, I really don't like that character, but that's not. I don't want to talk about that. I want you. Let's talk about. I know you do.
Yeah.
What about? I want you to talk about
things I don't like, but let's talk about something you don't like. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, she's creepy, and she makes a lot of advances towards Chewbacca, which I think are inappropriate.
I get
but
it.
That's my beef. Anyways, tell me about your experience there. How did you feel about this Cantina and Maz, and we can talk about Maz too if you want.
I thought it was like, I get it. They need to go to a shady kind of, dive bar / thing to do what they do, and it was a homage. And I guess this is where George is like, oh, come on, man. Why are you going here? I did it in Attack of the Clones. You don't need to do it here. We don't need to go back to, and granted, George mixed it up. He made it a club. And I don't know why he never named it Club Obi-Wan or something, or Club Indiana or something. I don't know, because it was Indiana. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But this was kind of like, I don't know what you could describe. It's a castle. It's a bar. I don't know what you would call this.
Yeah. So they explained that.
It's neutral.
No, they did get into the history. I think it was in Afra, where this has been a temple or some kind of for hundreds and hundreds of years, even like predates. It predates her, right? It's been around forever. She just converted it into this kind of like
Maz
bar, safe place for pirates and smugglers or whatever, as long as nobody brought the Empire there. Here's my petty moment of the show, and this probably won't be the only one tonight, but my petty moment is the music. I did not like the music, and the song's called Jabba Flow that plays. It's kind of like that reggae, Caribbean song that's playing in the background.
What about the Chicken in the Pot from Solo? Is that better?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not too bad. I think actually I will say this. I like that one more than Jabba Flow. How about that?
Okay.
I don't like either one of them, but I like that one more.
Yeah. Okay.
But here's the thing about that, and this is probably not that big of a deal, but at the time when this came out, I had no clue who this was or what the song was. But the band that's playing is called Shag Kava. And the person that actually came up with the song is Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is huge right now because he's the writer, composer, the main actor in Hamilton. So there you go. Bringing up Hamilton.
Well, no wonder I don't like it.
Yeah, I was going to say no wonder you didn't like it.
No wonder I didn't like it.
But anyways, that was a good one. Let's see. Where are we at this show? It's kind of going off the rails now. Starkiller Base. We've already talked about that. We've already talked about Starkiller Base. There's a moment there where Kylo Ren says that he feels the pull to the light, and that is kind of the start of where all this eventually goes and ultimately goes in the Rise of Skywalker. But he makes a comment when he's talking to Vader's helmet and saying, "I'm going to finish what you started." I guess in 30 seconds, how is that changed for you in terms of what you thought when it came out as to what maybe you think about now having the benefit of the other two movies?
Well, we'd always speculated that the mask was somehow speaking to him. I didn't think it was Anakin. I always thought like Snoke was. I think we mentioned on the show in the eons ago that like Snoke was kind of manipulating that whole situation, and he thinks it's Vader. It turns out it was Palpatine, I guess, because that was confirmed in the Rise of Skywalker. So, yeah, it just intrigued me at the time. But we went on to say, oh well, it's probably all in his head, right? And it seems to be the case anyway. So, yeah, that's what my thinking was. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the lightsaber calling. So we're going to jump ahead now to the vision, and we won't get into the vision yet because this is the moment I kind of want to break down a little bit later.
Well,
because it is.
I got an issue with this
spoken about.
Thing. I've had one for a while. I don't know. I've said it several times on the show, the old show. Like it goes to her.
Wait, no, save it. We'll come to it. Save it.
Okay.
We got to get to this show. Okay. We're at an hour and 5, and I'm like halfway through the notes here. So, but I think more than anything, well, again, we'll come back to that. So let's talk about the Fierce Machine. We already talked about that too. That's what Hux calls in his infamous speech, the one that you listen to get kind of motivated in the morning.
Yep.
In that speech, he calls it this Fierce Machine as he refers to Starkiller Base. And I mentioned this earlier on when we were talking about just visually and the soundtrack that's playing, like the score, Starkiller Base that's happening, and seeing the lights go across, and JJ's kind of panning in or zooming in on Kylo Ren standing there at the bridge, kind of in the darkness and the shadow. All of that visually is just great. I mean, I think this really is one of those finer moments in the movie, and it's got a lot of weight when you go back and now that like Star Wars Resistance. I know you weren't a fan of that, but Star Wars Resistance, that changed my perspective of that scene a lot more, just because it means more, and then certainly the novelization does that as well, because there's some characters that they introduce in the novelization that we never see. Actually, we do see one of the ladies, and I forget her name right now, but there are some characters that they introduce in the novelization that you get to know, you get to like, and they die, obviously, when Hosnian Prime blows up. But it's different now looking back at that movie and that particular scene than it was back in 2015 when it came out. At least for me, it was.
Okay. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal when it's like I've seen it all before, I guess and I guess that's what George was saying. I don't mean to poo-poo it. I mean, I get what you're saying with the novel. The novel was actually, I liked the novel a little bit better.
Yeah.
It gave more details that, made you, I don't know. There was a conflict between the novel and the movie too. They didn't exactly line up, but that got better as they went on with the other movies. But anyway, that's a whole other different thing. But continue, sir.
All right, next big moment. The battle at Maz's Castle.
Canastle. Maz's Canastle. Opening like soon. Yes. It's a good restaurant.
The traitor line. Like this has got turned into a meme a billion times over, GIFs and everything, where the stormtrooper yells at Finn for being a traitor.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great scene, honestly, and the idea that there's the first time I could recall, the stormtroopers didn't just roll over, like they actually put up a fight. Now, granted, it was Finn. You could argue that he wasn't. I mean, he did take on Kylo Ren a little bit later, although Kylo Ren was hurt. But we'll talk about that.
You sound like my old co-host Brian saying, "No, Darth Maul had to take on 2 people and he was tired. That's why he got cut in half." Blah blah blah. Go ahead, continue. It's an old joke.
That's not. That's I don't agree with that. But
I don't either.
I think he just got bested. To be honest, that guy was in his prime.
Yeah.
This one's a little different, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just seeing a stormtrooper go toe to toe with somebody, 1, and then 2, going toe to toe with somebody with a lightsaber, and like they never really explored that. Never really, like, here was the first time in canon that there was something that was able to block a lightsaber and deflect a lightsaber.
You go to the prequels, though. You have the guards there, Grievous's guards. They have the
batons.
The batons. Yeah, that miraculously stops a lightsaber too. So it's there, obviously, and I think we even talked about it, and it might be in canon where they use that technology in this, because they were training them to fight Jedi. I believe they were kind of getting into that mode. At least it was led to believe, because I think they thought Luke had an army of Jedi again or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. Even though they destroyed them, I don't know. I could be wishy-washy on this. I don't know if I'm exactly right or not, but that was years ago, so don't quote me on it. But I thought it was pretty cool because what it reminded me of is kind of like the Ralph McQuarrie image of the Stormtrooper with the lightsaber. And I don't know why it reminded me of that, because he did have a shield, like his riot shield or whatever, and he threw it or whatever. But it kind of reminded me of that, like a Jedi and I don't know, just kind of made me think of that painting for some stupid reason.
No, I
get
it.
Maybe
the
colors, but yeah, anyway. So
in that same moment, in that same scene, we get the X-Wings coming in, right? So you get the line of incoming at 2.86, and we get the shot of the X-Wings coming down the waterfront, which was in the trailer. And again, one of those moments from the trailer that really stands out for me, but definitely in the movie, just seeing X-Wings for the first time, one, not in space, really. I mean, we'd seen them on Dagobah and Hoth and that kind of thing, but seeing them in this, like, natural area that we were all able to relate to, like this big lake or a pond or whatever it was, and them just kind of floating high, just barely above the water and skimming the water, and that visual effect I thought was just great. I mean, it really stands out. But seeing them come in, and then the music, obviously, in that moment too, is really, really powerful. It goes back to I forget the track now, but it's like the Resistance. I forget what it's called now. Anyways, the music, the track during that is pretty good. That's one of a hell of a pilot.
Yeah.
Did this bother you that Poe was able to take down 10 TIE fighters in 15 seconds? And I've counted, like I've actually sat there and counted 1, 2, 3, 4 while it's going on. I know you're not. But in 15 seconds, he takes out 10 ships. And not only that, but he takes out some ground troops as well. So we're not even counting the lowly stormtroopers that get,
well, pelted. I like to think Poe pulled the Mike Rondo maneuver, like when he's playing Battlefront, and he just flying around, shooting everything under the sun, and just gets lucky. That's kind of, although it's led to believe that he may be a little. It didn't bother me. The line bothered me. That's one hell of a pilot. That kind of was like, yeah, we kind of see that, Poe. You don't have to announce it to the world. I mean, Finn, but I don't know. It just didn't bother me. The killing of all the TIE pilots. That didn't bother me. It's just the line. I think it was more of a distraction than Poe doing his thing there. Huh. But you wanted him to have his heroic moment, right? You got to have the. And we got to move it along.
He'd have his heroic moment later on, but
yeah, true.
Yeah. This was Well, I like this moment. I thought it was a great line. Okay, I saw our son Leia and Han reunited. This is a pretty poignant moment for them. So this is our first introduction to Leia officially once she gets off the little carrier there. And he gives her the line of "I saw our son." There's that moment too where he's just staring out at Kylo Ren, and the camera just hangs on him, and you got to be thinking like, you got to be wondering what he's thinking, seeing his son there, who he knows is a killer and has done some horrible things, and Leia's he thinks that Leia doesn't want him around because it reminds her of him being Kylo Ren. But any of this. You seem so indifferent to this movie, and I know you love this movie. It's so crazy. Like you have
no, I have a problem with. Now Kylo was what, maybe 100 yards away, if that, right, from his father here, when his father's kind of like looking at him, right? And,
yeah, maybe.
And he doesn't sense his father, like you would think he would.
No, and he doesn't later on either. He doesn't sense Chewie, you're stealing the notes here, but later on in Starkiller Base, when he's looking for him right before he dies, he walks right by Han, and Chewie's just like one level above, and he can't detect him. And I mean, there's a prevailing theory out there that he can't sense them because they're his family, and he's blocked them out and all that. But yeah, I know, I get it. You're right.
Maybe. I just think Kylo would have just turned around like, oh, hey, I should probably go and talk to him right now, that type of thing. I don't know. The other thing that the whole Han and Leia splitting up thing kind of, I mean, I get it. They're trying to convey them as normal people. They have problems and everything. I get that. But the way it panned out just seemed kooky to me. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. I figured they would be this type where they would split, but who knows? I remember I was thinking, though, the split was because Kylo killed their son, like his twin brother or something like that. I had a really dark, twisted theory, which would have been cool in my book, but I didn't write the script. So, but that was I remember the theory that I had, one of my cockamamie theories I had, that he actually killed his half brother or brother or whatever the hell, one of those types of scenarios. But anyway, Move along the show, sir, before I fall asleep.
Let's see. So let's get to the prisoner room. This is another kind of big moment for the movie. This is.
I have a very uncomfortable feeling on this. I didn't like the mind probing thing with. Oh, were you talking Finn or Poe? Poe.
No, right? We're talking about Poe. Yeah, I'm talking about Finn. I'm sorry. No, we're not. We're talking about Rey.
Ray.
Ray gets interrogated by Kylo Ren.
I don't know. This scene bothers me.
What is?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like because he's very. It's I don't know. It just bothers me that he's like basically just taking advantage of her that way, and just I don't know. I have a problem with it. It bothers me. It's one of the few scenes in Star Wars that really
is it uncomfortable, because of, and you don't need to get into details, but like personal experiences or
not personal, just in general. As it's just like because your mind, a human's mind, is a very intimate, personal thing. It's your own thing. It's the one place where no one can go in but you. People can try, but no one can. And then here he is getting inside her head, and of course she turns the tables, which I get. That was cool. I just still had a problem with it. It just bothered me. And I think the bigger problem is because depending on how you look at it in the stupid line from a certain point of view, that they have this relationship where they're, romantic or not romantic. And you think back, this kind of bothers me because if that's the case, this is not cool with me. But that's just me.
Yeah.
People will disagree. That's fine. But in any case, not to be a Debbie Downer. I'm already a Debbie Downer as it is. So move it along,
Just
sir.
Keep going. We haven't even got to the Debbie Downer part for you. So we got a lot more coming on. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about next the battle plans. And this is where it did feel very similar. Like, okay, they're back in a room. They're getting debriefed. And Han says the same thing. How do you blow it up? There's always a way to blow it up, right? I mean, we get that line, which is just kind of like, okay, this is the third time we've done this now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Did it bother you, I guess, overall that this
same old thing
was happening?
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's a safe bet. I think the setup of what's coming, like all these little moments, they're kind of mundane. They're like going through the motion type of thing, and like, okay, I get it. We got to do these things that are familiar, but we also had to lay a few things for the future, and they did do that. So it was kind of like, you got to give them something that's, kind of the same old same, and then just kind of you set things up. The movie was a setup movie, and what do? You got to go back to the well and use what worked before. I guess that's kind of what I'm taking away from it. I don't know, but yeah,
I don't know.
Seems like this bothered you.
No? I don't know that it bothered me. I get the criticism of it feeling too familiar, and trust me, I mean, we don't need to do this because it doesn't really it does no good. But if we wanted to, we could sit down here and literally lay out so much of this script and show examples of where this was used already in previous Star Wars stories. Right? I mean, there's not much here that's original.
Yeah,
but that's not a bad thing. And this, I don't want to. I was going to kind of end with this as kind of my final thoughts here, and maybe it's just now is the right time to do it. But Star Wars, I mean, The Force Awakens, for all of its problems, and really there aren't that many, but for all of its problems, for as many things as you can find fault with, you can't argue that this movie wasn't enjoyable, right? The numbers show it. The fans have shown it. You can argue about Arndt's and Kazan's script and whether they pooped on Lucas's original ideas. At the end of the day, it's an entertaining movie. It's a movie that a lot of people that enjoyed, right? It may not be your favorite, but it's hard to find somebody that didn't go in and see this movie and go, I liked it. It was great. I enjoyed it. That's why it was so popular. Again, and I'm not speaking for everybody. There are always going to be pockets. There are always going to be the vocal minority that didn't like certain things, and they get hung up on one particular aspect, and that becomes the movie for them. Mm-hmm. But by and large, again, for all of its faults, it is, and even if it does feel familiar, it was still a good story. And this kind of plays into what I've always said about Star Wars, really, and really just storytelling in general. You can't say that any particular storyline that is portrayed, any particular movie, any particular story, any particular thread, any particular narrative that you see is the way it could only be. And we'll talk. I'm going to get on a soapbox when we get into The Last Jedi. but it starts here. It starts with the Force Awakens. It starts with the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Let me finish. So it starts with the Force Awakens because I lost my train of thought.
Oh, he's mad at me. I'm sorry, buddy.
All right.
I get it. I get you're mad at me. That's cool. I screwed you up.
No, it's okay.
Usually you take my little zingers like that and you're fine with it and you're professional and you keep going, but I screwed it up this time. Sorry.
No,
I feel bad now.
No.
I feel bad.
All right, let's move on. I don't know what I was talking about.
All right, good.
Okay.
Let's move on.
We were at Ilum. We talked about that. There were some funny moments in here. We got the sanitation, finding that Finn was in sanitation of all things, which I thought was really clever of them. And that whole line of "That's not how the Force works." I think that was great. And then he has another great line in here where he says, "I'm in charge, Phasma. Now I'm in charge. I'm in charge." And then Han just gently turns over to him and says, "Bring it down, bring it down." Like he's getting a little too excited about kind of challenging Phasma. And we did get that storyline. We get to figure out a little bit later why she lived and, all that, being down in the garbage chute and all that. So, and of course we would see her later in the next movie and die. Yeah. But let's get to the big scene, the biggest one of all, which is the death of Han Solo and the whole being torn apart moment there on the bridge. We talked about, him not sensing Han and Chewie already. Yeah. But give me your overall thoughts before we really break this down a little bit.
First off, I was never the biggest Han Solo fan. As I said, he reminded me of my brother, and cocky, just full of himself or whatever kind of thing. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, Han's a good character and all that. It's just I don't know. I was more of a Luke guy. Like Luke was my guy to cling to and kind of look up to and stuff. Han was just kind of like the loudmouth or whatever, but he comes through for you when you need him, right? So, and that's important. When he got stabbed, it didn't really bother me. I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. He had to die. He was going to die. Was it a good sacrifice? Was it I don't know. I don't think so. I think there could have been better ways to do it. But again, it did add to Kylo's character, which I think was more important, right, at the end of the day, because he had that moment where he touches his face and, even when Kylo does it, after the fact, he realizes this isn't what I thought it was going to be. At least that's how we always speculated. It wasn't what it was going to be. Like he thought he was going to be free from the family and from those feelings and the light and everything. And, it's kind of the flip where Luke was getting the pull to the dark, but stayed in the light. Now Kylo's in the dark and he's getting pulled to the light. It's kind of a flip on the two. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, it kind of sucked. I'd rather have him go out with the Falcon. That was always my thing. Like, he'd go out with the Falcon, and that's the way it probably should, but that's not what happened. But, it was all right. I was fine with it. I don't know. I know you probably cried. I didn't. I was clapping. No, I'm only kidding. I'm not that mean. But I don't know. What were you going?
I don't know that I got. I don't know that I cried, and I do cry in movies, but this is not. I don't think I cried in this movie. I think it was more in shock because this confirmed one of the rumors for me that I knew kind of going into the show that he was going to die. I really struggled with this scene a lot for a very long time, in just kind of going through it. From the moment he says, I'm being torn apart. I want to be free of this pain. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Will you help me? And Han responds back, yes, anything. And it's right after that he, plunges the lightsaber into him and kills him. And I really struggled with that for, again, a very long time, trying to make sense of why would he say,
Petricide?
Why would he do that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? And I mean, today, I think my answer, and I don't know if we want to talk about it now. Maybe we'll talk about it when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, because I think that's where it kind of really makes sense and kind of solidified or at least confirmed how I rationalized all of this. And unfortunately, it took many years for me to get the answers that I wanted, but we finally got them, right or wrong. But yeah, I think more than anything, it disturbed me because I just did not understand what the point was or what the purpose was. And I do now. It's very clear to me, at least. I'm not saying I'm right or I'm right, but it is certainly clear to me in my own headcanon in terms of why that had to happen. So. All right, so let's talk about the Chewie. We've always talked about this. He's so stoic, right? I mean, he just saw his best friend die that he's known for many years, and he has this moment of emotion, but he just gets on with it. And I just love the fact that he does that. Like, he knows the mission is still more important than even that man that just died, and so he does go through and
Well, he's what, almost 200 years old. He knows, he's got that wisdom. He's, Han was just this dog that died. Well, all right, time to get a new dog. I don't know. But yeah, I guess he is. Maybe we'll do a show on that. Who's a stoic in the Star Wars galaxy? We kind of touched on it before with, I think, with Plagueis. We kind of in Qui-Gon, but that was a whole other thing. Yeah. But anyway, but yeah, Chewie just kind of, he wants his revenge, but he holds back. He knows he's got to take care of the kids, right? He's got to we got other things to do. Han's dead. There's nothing I can do. I tried to take out his son.
I mean, he basically mortally wounds him.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing because he yells, but he didn't hesitate to do it.
Right.
Like you thought, like him and Chewie kind of were pals back in the day. You kind of figure growing up, who wouldn't want to hang out with a Wookiee? Even if you're a bad guy, you'd like, hey, I'm a bad guy now, but at some point, but it's a Wookiee. It's like a dog. But he doesn't hesitate and he shoots him. And that's an interesting scene. And Kylo drops because, the Force helped him survive that. But it was interesting that Chewie just kind of, he roared and then did his thing, man. He kind of, all right, an eye for an eye here.
Yep.
And just didn't even think about it. He just kind of did it. And then moved on. Like you said, he was very stoic. He's like, all right, my emotions, I put them aside. I got to take the kids, get them to safety, and do what I got to do to get off this rock type of thing. But that was very interesting. I don't know. What did you think of Chewie shooting? What did you think?
I mean, I think, that certainly, like you said, it holds a way more weight now, having read the Rise of Skywalker novelization than I did at the time. Because, I mean, I kind of speculated that they had a relationship, but that was confirmed. And to the extent of which they had a relationship was certainly confirmed. But yeah, I've always thought that was a great moment. I thought we really spoke to Chewie's character really well in terms of how he would do it. Had his moment, put that aside, on with the mission. We can grieve later down the road, but right now is not the time, kind of thing. Very much like
he's so stoic. He walks right by Leia. That was an editing mistake, but that's okay. Yeah. JJ fessed up to it, so I give him that credit.
But I think of like Leia is kind of in that same boat. Like she would do the same thing. A Padme would probably do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Just these
no
characters.
time for our sorrows. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, we're kind of coming up in the very end here, but let's get to the battle between let's talk with Finn and Poe. I'm sorry. Finn and Kylo. And I can't get these names straight. I've only been talking about this movie for 5 years, but Kylo and Finn and their lightsaber battle, which I thought was good. Again, I think I remember a lot of people really had a lot of beef with this because it's like, oh, how would he be able to take on Kylo Ren? And I mean,
he'd already trained melee weapons. So
sure, he demonstrated that. Even if he was in sanitation, it's like the Marine Corps. Right? You go, everybody goes to basic.
The cook knows, the cook.
Everybody knows how to kill you. Everybody knows how to shoot you, and then you go on and make shoes or whatever you do. That's not a profession in the Marine Corps. But
no, but you could be a cook or whatever. Yeah. I didn't have a problem with it because Kylo is still kind of learning too, right? Like he's out of control. Like he doesn't have the control. Like he's 1 minute he seems, he's got it, but then he gets too overconfident and he gets too, and especially here, he's also wounded, right? So on top of that, that adds to why Finn could kind of go a little longer than you would think here. But again, Finn had the melee weapon training. Just as the guy that said traitor, right? And he wielded the lightsaber earlier, so you can kind of rationalize it, but I didn't have too big of a problem with it. I have a problem with the lightsaber battles throughout the sequel trilogy, but we'll get into that as we go. I know people are going to look at me and say, how do you not like the throne room thing? But we'll get to that when we get to that. But I thought the fight was kind of choppy, but it needed to be that way, right? Because they're all novices here. They're not like, it's not like Luke and Vader going against each other.
Professional Jedi.
Yeah. There's no one that's exactly refined, and the lightsaber combat hasn't been around for like 30 years here, right?
Right. Like who's training who here?
Yeah, exactly. Like lightsabers are kind of not around, so this is what it is. It's this wonky style right now, and now Rey has to learn the style, right? Like with all those books, she's going to have to learn the forms and all that other stuff going forward, but that's way down the line. But at this point in time, it was clunky, I thought. It was very much like two kids picking up a lightsaber in the backyard and just kind of whacking each other, really, is what it looked like to me. And basically that's how I would fight
Yeah, it's like a street fight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not so much refined and precision or whatever. But what are your thoughts? I assume you liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had any issues with it. I kind of rationalized it even in the moment the first time watching it that, okay, yeah, he's capable of doing this. Now, he wouldn't be able to sustain that, and that's certainly what happened here. The minute he got a shot on, once he got a shot on Kylo Ren, you know, Kylo Ren just turned it up a notch and took him out. I mean, just put him down. Like
and then he put the dagger pod, the cross guard into his shoulder. He was going to take him out, but it's only Rey that kind of, took care of business there at that point. So
we get the next scene here where he's finally trying to call, and we can get into I know you wanted to talk about this, but the lightsabers in the snow, very similar to the shot that we got from Empire Strikes Back where Luke is reaching for the lightsaber on Hoth, but very similar to that. And just before that, he's trying to call the lightsaber. And this is something, I don't think we've ever talked about it. But did you ever think that the lightsaber was resisting the call to Kylo? Because if you watch in that scene, it shakes a little bit. Yeah, and then Kylo tries again. It cuts over to Kylo. He tries a little bit harder, I guess. And then it finally releases and it goes flying past him and into Rey's hand. But I always theorized that lightsaber was resisting like the call to Kylo Ren, because there isn't any reason why he couldn't have called the lightsaber to him, called it to his hand in that first shot, and he doesn't. But any thoughts on that?
Well, I think at the time, I jokingly said, and it's similar to what you're kind of saying here. I think I remember I said, well, the lightsaber's been through so many bad things and done so many bad things.
It's like, no,
I ain't going down that path, man. Nope. I'm going to sit here right in the snow till Rey calls me, and then I'm going. I have a problem with the scene. Well, I didn't then. I do later on. Now, when you retrospectively look at it, I kind of have a problem with it because it just doesn't make that much sense. Like, to me, it made sense, and I know people poo-poo the idea of Rey Skywalker, like a descendant of Luke and Anakin type thing, and not so much like she's just taking the name. That's fine too. Whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But when she calls it, it's like, okay, she's like the Luke, and she's the good one, so it went to her. That's what you're thinking. Like, and then the interesting the dynamic of like a Skywalker and a Solo kind of having at odds at each other because they've always been, teammates basically. That's kind of where my head was at the time. Now it's so much like it doesn't really make sense because, like you said, Kylo should be able to pull it. There's the lightsaber. I know the crystals themselves, right? The kyber crystals have some kind of a sentient to it, right? So maybe that had something to do with it. So,
there's two things. There's two things that play here. There's that the lightsaber, the crystals themselves calling out. Those have some kind of a sentience of some sort, right? But then there's also, and we're not going to get into this because honestly, we've done a whole show on this already. But you get into the aspects of like the living force, right? Yeah. And the will of the force. Yeah. And the cosmic force, right? All these things play into Star Wars lore, and if you just focus on the movies, it's lost. You have it's really hard to grasp the concept of what these three things are because they're only spoken about very loosely and just name dropped very loosely. When you get into legends and even in the canon now, those things actually do mean a lot. They actually have a lot of weight, and so that's why they exist and why stuff like this can happen. So I get, some people don't like all that, but it is Star Wars, whether you like it or not. That's just where we are.
Well, maybe it was Anakin.
Maybe it was Anakin.
Maybe it was Anakin said, nope, hold on.
Not going there.
Okay, Rey. Now you can go. Yeah, maybe.
All right, so here's where I felt like the people, there was one strong argument at the time that when Rey and Kylo Ren were fighting, that the people that were saying that she was a Palpatine, I thought had like got it right. And I don't know, and I've never really honestly researched this to see if this is true or not.
Style?
But yeah, the fighting style. Yeah, exactly. Because she's got a lot of these sweeping kind of stabbing moves. And the only time we had seen that, at least in canon, was from Palpatine's fighting style. So I always saw that and I was like, oh yeah, whatever, sure. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But I think if you're going to if you want to point to any one thing that was an indicator now, again, retrospectively looking and having the benefit of the last movie, that was probably it because they are very similar fighting styles.
Yeah, true.
How she would have picked that up, I don't know, but that's not the point.
Well, see, something with this whole sequence, and we'll mention it throughout, is like there are moments you're like, okay, this was planned, and you see it, and then there are other moments like, no, it really wasn't. I don't know where to place all that. Sometimes it's like Yeah, it looked like you had it mapped out, but no, I don't know. Maybe the execution. I don't know. But anyway, carry on, sir.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, and to that point, Palpatine was not in the like when we talk again, going back to the art scripts, he was not in this. It wasn't until Kathleen Kennedy came in and to Abrams came in and Kasdan sat down and started redoing the script that this concept of Palpatine living somehow surfaced. And so whether it was a strong, hey, we're going to knock this out in the third movie, or hey, let's just table this and come back to it a little bit later, I don't know, but it was not originally there. So
yeah.
Okay, let's see. We get the final moment that we want to talk about before we get to like Jedi steps and all that was just the Kylo Ren and Rey lightsaber duel in itself. I thought it's a great visually and beautifully shot fight. The coloring, the lighting, the shadowing, and this is kind of honestly, it's some of J.J. Abrams' best work, to be honest. Especially the shots and the camera angles and the cinematography that's used. But my favorite moment in this is when she has that moment of clarity, when she finally closes her eyes and kind of becomes calm and at peace. And I've always, even when I saw the movie, that makes me think of Empire Strikes Back when Luke asks Yoda, is the dark side more powerful? And he says, no, quicker, more seductive. And he's like, well, how will I know? And he's, when you're calm, when you're at peace. And that was that moment for me. That was a moment where she realized, okay, I'm too crazy, whatever else. And the Force spoke to her and she decided to kind of bring it down a notch, kind of decided to kind of be at peace. And that's what gave her the ability to best Kylo Ren. All things considered, he was hurt and all that, but that was it. Yeah. But just that shot of her kind of holding that lightsaber when she closes her eyes and then she opens them. That was great. But I know you have a problem with the slow motion stuff, and I think there was a little bit of slow motion here.
Yeah, there was.
I know you've always said that's not Star Wars, right?
It's not. I can't stand the slow-mo thing. We're not the Matrix, so stop pretending to be the Matrix. I get it.
You weren't doing bullet time. I mean, that's different. I get that.
No, it's still stupid. And I get it. They did it with the the Old Republic, that one moment with in the temple there where he jumps over it and the saber's there. Even then, I don't like it. But that's a video game trailer. This is not in the movie, no. Because I like the Star Wars. Star Wars needs to be fast, more intense. Faster, more intense, right? Not let's slow it down and be all cutesy type of thing. But this is just me. I just don't like it in Star Wars.
How did you feel then about like the cave? Because that wasn't slow motion. I think what they did is they removed frames. Yeah, they removed some frames to kind of like make it choppy. But that was it. When the helmet turns, it kind of slow motion.
It depends in the battle. Like there were moments like when they were fighting in the Rise of Skywalker where they were getting into the Force, and there were moments where, okay, you could see them slowing it down because of the Force. I got that. But here, they were just straight-on street fighting kind of thing, as we mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. It didn't work for me. You can rationalize it, I guess, when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, I'll mention it and talk about it, is, okay, you can say, all right, it's kind of the Force doing its, the kind of, the way it's going, you can kind of see that. But I just don't like it. I just like it to be that fast kind of shock moment type thing, not like, ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
The cave was a vision, so it can be staggering, kind of jarring, and make you feel uncomfortable. That's what you kind of want in a vision, which we'll get to in this 5-hour show, type of thing. So, when the fighting comes, I don't like this slow-mo thing, and even the camera, the GoPro camera on the X-wing fighter too. I didn't like that either. And Dave used it in the Clone Wars too. I don't know why he did that. I didn't like that either. But anyway, all right, that's just me.
No, I have no judgment at all. I mean, I get it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's totally your opinion too. All right, let's talk about.
I'm right.
Well, doesn't mean you're wrong either. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about the kind of final moment. Let's try to wrap this up. So, we get the line from Snoke. It's time to complete his training. We'll talk about that next movie. So let's just table that. Starkiller Base finally gets destroyed, and I think at that moment, a lot of people were thinking, "Wow, that's it for the Resistance." What are they like? Well, maybe not. They come back a little bit later, and they're still around. We got the Chewie snubbing Leia. We talked about that, and that he just kind of walks past her.
Yep.
Which
he's very concerned about Finn.
I guess
he was. He was very concerned about Finn. So I don't blame him.
Rey and Leia's hug, I thought has more weight now, given the Rise of Skywalker and what we know that Leia knows about her at the time, or knew, I guess, at the time, that we didn't know about that. And then we got R2 waking up. He was in low power mode.
Just like
finally,
Luke.
just like in low power mode. And we get the idea, we get this thought of we find out that, Luke's location, and there's the trip, and then we're going to finally get to your scene here, because I know you want to talk about, as your kind of scene that you wanted for discussion was Jedi steps. And I may be oversimplifying that, but it's just literally once she gets over to and makes her way up the steps. So take it away.
Well, for me, it's because I have a daughter, and this was like, all right, kind of the passing of the torch type thing with my daughter in my mind. So this is like my headcanon here. And as a young guy, I've been lost for many years, and my daughter pretty much brought me back to the good side, if you will, for the most part. I'm still a little dark. Mm-hmm. But this is an important moment where she comes up and she hands him the lightsaber to kind of remind him, like he did with his father, this is who you are. And it was kind of the passing of the torch thing. And it was a special moment for me. It's like we're bridging the gap here and kind of connecting all this there in my head. And it was just an awesome moment, because then you see Luke, you see pain in his face. You're like, what was going on with Luke? Why would Luke just leave? Why would he even leave R2, his sidekick? He would never leave R2. All these things racing through your head. And I just thought it was a beautiful moment to like, if you're going to keep Luke hidden throughout the movie, right? And you see him there, and I remember the rock that's in front of him looks like a headstone. Everyone's thinking, oh, it's the grave of the mother, and blah, blah, blah. Everybody had all these crazy theories, right? So it just meant something to me. It was just a beautiful way to end it, in a sense. Like, you found Luke, and then I'm thinking, all right, here we go. Now we're on to something. Something cool's coming, and well, we'll get into that next week. But I just thought it was a great moment where, that whole scene was there, and she's got the look of like, okay, hi, how are you? Who are you? I don't even know what to make of you, because you're this grizzly old man with, like this look of like despair or sadness or whatever is going on there. And then you're thinking, all right, well, what was the problem? What was the beef with Han? What was the beef with Leia? What about Kylo? What about the Jedi that died? All these things just sparked off. Why are you here? Were you on some secret mission to kill Snoke or something like that? Like to find the answer to do it or something? Like, all these things were going on. It just was, for me, a personal moment, like, I don't know, what would you call that? Like a symbolic moment, like you see in a movie and you think of somebody else. And it just made me think of my daughter coming up to see me and handing me my lightsaber and say, this is who you are, you dope. Oh, come on. Don't be an idiot anymore.
Get back in the battle.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of thing. I don't know. It was just a special moment. I thought it was, as much as it's flawed, it set up, that one particular thing set up a lot of great things that could have come, depending on your point of view, or maybe it did set up a bunch of good things depending on your point of view. But anyway, I don't know. What did you think of that scene? Did you like it? Hate it?
Oh yeah, I mean,
no problem.
We were waiting for it. I mean, this is finally Luke Skywalker was there, and like I said, it was kind of like my worst fear had come true, because again, it said Luke Skywalker had vanished, and there were some rumors already out there floating around before the movie came out as to whether or not he was going to be in the movie and to what extent. And this kind of confirmed it all, that here's the very end. I mean, we were already 2.5 hours into the movie, and we're finally getting to see Luke Skywalker, right? So that was it was great to see him. It was great to know that, okay, well, at least nothing else, we're in for a lot of Luke Skywalker. And again, this is me projecting how I felt at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot more of Luke Skywalker here in The Last Jedi and in Part 9. And so for that, I was like grateful, right? Okay, at least we'll get that.
Yeah.
Probably didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to be, but that's kind of the line of the movie, right? This isn't going to end the way you think it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like it. I like the music here. Again, going back to the soundtrack, Jedi Steps in the finale is what that track is called. I thought that was good stuff. And the gravestone was something, I don't know if that ever got confirmed as to if that was a gravestone or not. I mean, I think it was.
No,
again,
I don't think it is. No.
Yeah, it's just a rock that's kind of jet protruding out of there. Where were the porgs? That's my problem with this scene, is they weren't there, but then they show up in Last Jedi. I'm kidding. Don't, because you're gonna fire.
We'll save it for next week. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We'll get into my favorite scene: Chewie eating porgs. But Albert's is me reading
Chewie and the porgs, which Mike has done, by the way. So
no,
you can't erase that. It's forever on the internet too.
Yeah, that's awful. I wish I never did it. But anyway, continue, sir.
Well, I guess let's. I want to talk about my little scene here, and I don't know again that I have a whole lot of. I don't know that I've got a lot of information here more than, and it's really Rey's final steps. Let me. I guess let me try to share my screen so we can get a copyright infringement like we normally do.
Oh, I love these things.
Because this is about the time that we were due for one. We haven't gotten one here.
Yeah. Well, at least it's near the end of the show, so that's always good, right? So we can edit the end of the show, and you guys don't even miss anything. I mean, it's almost a 3-hour show, anyways, right? It's gonna hit. Here we go.
What does it matter? But there were, I guess, so the reason I wanted to kind of talk about this was because this scene, when it came out, let me turn the volume down here too. Yeah, when it came out, was discussed. I mean, good grief. Everybody talked about the scene. Yeah, exactly. What did it mean? How does BB-8 get back up the steps?
How did they get Luke's lightsaber?
How did they get Luke's lightsaber? Which we find out later in the comic books, by the way, that not exactly. We know Maz Kanata got it, but it's found on Cloud City, which diverts from the original. Because if you remember, The Force Awakens was going to open up with Luke's hand floating with the lightsaber. Yeah. They didn't do that, so that allowed the comic book to kind of take some liberties there and say that it was, found on Cloud City, and then how Maz Kanata got that, and how she got what I think is Kenobi's footlocker, which is right there.
It's never been confirmed, though.
Never been confirmed. Now I get it, but I always thought that it looks very similar. Whether it is or not, I don't know. Maybe she's just a kleptomaniac and goes around and knows when people die. She goes around.
No, that doesn't. That's not his. That's not what it looks like.
Okay.
He's got those diamond. He's got those diamond-shaped things on the top. I don't think that's it. I don't.
I'm good with it. I really don't care either way.
Yeah, I know.
But I think the one thing is, again, retrospectively looking at now, back at this scene, I guess, and I was going to break it down, but we're way over on time. So all I'll say is, I don't know that this scene really means any more than it did back then, right?
It's pointless. Other than it's just making her, it's calling her to action, really, or to a bigger purpose, and kind of showing her bits and pieces of something that doesn't really, as we talked before we came on, it doesn't really make any sense, right? It doesn't, none of it really jives much. But I don't know, when I watch the Rise of Skywalker in a few weeks here, when we do this again, maybe it'll make even more sense. But for right now, from what I remember of the movie, it doesn't really do much. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think it?
Well, I mean, it's easy now to kind of go back and say, oh, they meant this, they meant that. Did they know that at the time? No, I don't think they did. Right?
No, because again, this goes to that whole thing. Like, okay, some of it looks planned out, then it doesn't. And this was supposed to have Luke and Vader fighting.
Yeah, they were supposed to show. Yeah, they were supposed to show Luke and Vader fighting in The Empire Strikes Back. I think there's some concept art or something or whatever that was created for the time. I mean, this scene here was probably the most effectively, kind of foreshadowing that was going to happen. A lot of speculation as to why Luke's hand was on R2 and what he was doing, what they were doing at the time. This scene here we're not even talking about all the audio stuff, but whether or not this was Kylo Ren killing all the, like, this at one point, this was, these are all the Jedi people that Kylo Ren killed and the Knights of Ren killed. But we know now that that's not even true. He didn't kill any of these people. This was all done by the Knights of Ren. He got framed for it, but he wasn't the one that actually pulled the trigger, kind of thing. And again, love it or hate it, that's just canon now. You have to accept it at least. But back then, this was, this is it. And I think in one shot here, when the lightning hits, you kind of see the Jedi. I kind of missed it. You can see the Jedi temple there in shadow. At least people thought that was. I'm not gonna be able to catch it.
Is that the tree? Or no, that's.
Well, you could say it's a tree too, but it's kind of in the background right here. You can't really see it. But before we knew there was a tree, people were saying, "Oh, this is probably the temple," and this is, they just killed all these poor people. I think the only good thing.
And then, of course, the guy there, the villager that got stabbed, there was a whole thing with him as well, with rumors that it was the guys that were keeping her safe and all that other stuff. And I remember all that. But continue.
Now, here, I guess another moment here that I think, again, right or wrong, like it or hate it, it now means something is, whether or not he was actually seeing her. There was a lot of debate. Does he see her? Right? Is this the future? Is it the past? Yeah. And I think we can confirm now that this was probably him seeing her and her seeing him right there, because we know they were sharing visions because of the dyad, because of their connection, kind of thing. Yeah. And of course, this scene right here is what sparked all the debate about, okay, is this whose ship is that, and why was she
There's
left?
still
And who were her parents?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Well, why does Unkar have her? And then, like in the Rise of Skywalker, they're like dropping her off somewhere in that scene, if I remember right. So even this doesn't make much sense. I don't know. The ship still looks the same, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at it again when we get to that.
Yeah, they do explain all that in the novel. I don't know that they do in the movie. I can't honestly remember. No, they don't. It's in the novelization. They kind of explain all that, how she gets into Unkar Plutt's clutches, I guess. But this is Ochi's ship now, so I mean, at least they came back to this, and whether you like it or not, they at least explain this. And now you've got something to hang your hat on there. This is the one part that I've always like, even to this day, I don't know that I. What's that?
That's Starkiller.
So Starkiller, yeah. No, and I'm with you. I mean, that was kind of. I always felt like that was either Starkiller, because that's very similar to the light. The only difference is it's red here, and then when we see Starkiller finally take its last bit of energy from the sun before it's about ready to power up or fire, it's all yellow. So the colors are different, but it's almost exactly the same visual.
I took it as just before it's gonna fire or whatever. Like, just I don't know. That's just how I took it, but I could be wrong. But I don't know. That's what it made me think of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the symbolism here now too. I don't know. Maybe it's Ochi's ship returning to the red, which is Sith, because that's who he was working for. There was also some symbolism here. I really want to spend more time on this, and I just can't because we don't have enough time. But I do like the symbolism here of everything kind of collapsing.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up, and she's now witnessing Luke, who was witnessing something collapsing as well. But again, this is all loose stuff. Let's see, and I think that was pretty much it, right? We see that, and she kind of pops out of it. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, we got this. Which this is obviously. All right, so here's the only other thing that I'll say, and again, I don't think this is what they meant or intended at the time, but this scene here is, we having the benefit of the Rise of Skywalker, and this very much plays into my breakdown of Return of the Jedi, my scene and my thoughts there around confronting fear as kind of what the destiny of every Jedi is. This, to me, at least her in this moment, in The Force Awakens, this is her fear. She's got to confront this beast, or this monster, if you will, that has been kind of tormenting her. And so it kind of foreshadows that she's going to, one, fight him. Two, she is going to confront her fear. And by confronting this fear, at least right now, she will become somewhat of a Jedi, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think they had this intent when they did it. But if I'm trying to kind of make sense of it and rationalize it so I can go to sleep at night and really feel better about the sequel trilogy, this is how I do stuff. And then, of course, you got, Ewan McGregor. And again, there's so much in here. There's so many lines, things you hear that were just thrown in there. And this is all J.J. Abrams' mystery box. So, yeah, a lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it means nothing. A lot of it is pointless these days, especially when you look at it now. But is it good cinema? I think it is. I think it was a talking point. It got people talking about, do you remember the vision scene? What did it mean to you? I mean, this is the stuff this is Star Wars. Whether you like it or not, this is Star Wars. This is the stuff that we debate and we talk about and chat about with our friends and argue about and back and forth. To me, this is like the stuff that we were seeing and things that we talked about during the original trilogy, if you remember that far back. So it does have its benefits, whether, again, most people like it or not, or hate it or not, or think it's irrelevant or pointless, all up for debate. But it is something it is Star Wars in that sense that it does give you things to discuss.
Well, it was interesting at the time. It's just looking at it from now, years later, does it make sense? Who knows? I mean, again, like when I get to the Rise of Skywalker and I watch it again, maybe it'll make more sense. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We shall see. Yes.
As to quote Snoke, we shall see.
Yeah. We shall see.
Okay.
We shall see. Yes.
I think that's going to do it for this show.
Thank goodness.
I know you're trying to get through it all, weren't you?
I was. It wasn't easy. I'm tired.
Before we go, though, I did want to say thank you to all of our recent YouTube subscribers. And this is still very new to us in terms of, we used to do it a long time ago. We've brought it back and now doing it there. But we've had an influx of people that have joined. So I do want to just acknowledge them. I'm going to read these names out. Sanoa Stalcup, Matt W., Casey Hilsey, Jeremiah Fogel 16, Sip Ruve, Lynn Sasportas, William George, Jonathan McMahon. Did I say that? Yeah, McMahon.
Yeah.
Max Cavo, Inglico 1, Matthew Elliott, Dante Scarpato, Darth Wint, and Kea Garcia. Thank you guys for subscribing to the show. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the show, especially on YouTube. We obviously do this. We release the audio version on podcasts. I think the Return of the Jedi one, did that hit tonight?
Oh, yeah. It's
okay,
out
good.
there.
Yeah, so Jedi just came out, the show that we did last week. So this will be out next week on the audio podcast. But yeah, we certainly appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate all the feedback, whether you agree or disagree with us or even the movies themselves. All of that is welcome. It's all good debate. As long as everybody stays cool and civil, we'll continue to have them. So,
yes.
All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I am tired, and I'm going to hit the button. Hopefully, the right one.
Yeah, let's see if he gets this right, because that'll be a win-win.
Money on this. We
and on a high note.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to hit the button here. There we go. So in a second here, you should hear it. There we go. We're good.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys. See you guys next week with The Last Jedi.
Yes.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.